A key offensive lineman for the New England Patriots makes his return to practice. What impact will it have on the starting quarterback position? Stick around. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful. Thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. I'm your host, Mike Debate. I cover your New England Patriots for Patriots Country of Athlon Sports. Reach out to me on X at MDABATENFL. While you're out there, make sure to follow Locked On Patriots on X as well at LO_Patriots. And Pats fans, to open up your week in style here on Locked On Patriots, we got a lot to cover. New England Patriots are taking an offensive strategy of staying with the status quo, but might the return of Sidy Sow to the lineup have an impact on the quarterback position sooner rather than later? We're going to take a look at the Jets matchup and see what stood out and what could possibly be a harbinger of things to come in Week 4. And speaking of Week 4, those San Francisco 49ers suffered a loss on Sunday. Is that going to make these Niners a little more salty or a little more vulnerable? All of that will be covered on today's episode, and here to help me break it all down is my good friend and colleague, the host of the Locked On Boston Patriots Postcast, as well as the host of Locked On Baylor, Cam Stuart. Cam, welcome to Locked On Patriots, and thanks for joining me today, bud.
Thank you for having me. It feels like I've been able to come down a little bit since the postcast on Thursday night, which was an animated one. So I feel level-headed would imply that I've got something going on up there, but at least not as emotional.
Absolutely. Yeah, you were definitely animated. And you know what? I don't blame you at all. I think we all were animated when we saw the type of product the Patriots put out in all three phases against the Jets. Folks, it hurts when you lose to the Jets. There's no question about it. But it's the manner in which they lost. It felt like everything went wrong, from strategy, coaching, execution. Nothing seemed to be going right. But the New England Patriots are sticking with their plan to continue on with Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback. Drake Maye was very matter-of-fact about that on Friday morning. That continued to be the case throughout the week, and especially when the Patriots returned to the practice fields on Monday. But, Cam, there was a return of a key offensive lineman to practice on Monday, and that may help to shore up this offensive line a little bit, which has been decimated by injuries. But regardless of what, they were dominated by a powerful New York Jets defensive front, and the defensive front that they're going to be facing in Week 4 is not going to be any less potent. We're going to get to the San Francisco 49ers in just a minute, folks. But, Cam, let's start with the New England Patriots strategy in terms of staying with Jacoby over Drake Maye. The positive to that is that you don't want to put Drake Maye behind an offensive line that could either get him, A, injured, B, could definitely disrupt his progress. Now that you've had at least a few days in between the postcast and now and the end of the game, you still feel as adamant that it's time for a change, or is there a situation where you believe the Patriots are taking the right course, or are they really taking the only one available to them?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, and I think it's right, the right course, and very close to the only course. Because when I look at this Drake Maye situation and trying to get him out there, there's two things, right? Obviously, it's the team around him, not just the offensive line, but that's a huge part of it, but the offensive line and the weapons. It's not conducive to helping a rookie quarterback the same way in 2021 with Mac Jones. They had an experienced offensive line. They had spent on free agent weapons. And, you know, I'm not saying this was a murderer's row of wide receivers, but you did have Jacoby Myers. You did have a healthy Kendrick Bourne. You thought you had something in Nelson Aguilar and the tight ends with him. You have not even close to that. And you had two backs that you were really high on with a very young rookie Ramondre Stevenson behind Damian Harris. And you don't have that with this team. And then, of course, the other thing being, you know, facing a non-vanilla defense, a Neapolitan defense, if you will, that would come with an actual NFL regular season game. The Patriots were not blitzed like at all the first two games, which was mind-boggling considering the patchwork they've had to do on this line. And finally, the Jets said, it seems like their biggest weakness might be protecting the quarterback. Why don't we bring some blitzes? And San Francisco is going to be doing the same thing with their vaunted front as well. So as bad as that product was on Thursday, and as much as I really hated to watch it, I can understand keeping Drake Maye on the bench right now. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because to me, it's a week-by-week thing. Am I saying, hey, keep him on the bench the rest of the season? No. And it sounds like the Patriots aren't saying that either. But right now, let's just make sure your offensive line is healthy. City So is a big step in that. But it really, as crazy as this sounds, the development of your rookie quarterback and putting him out there for the first time depends on when you can get Vidarian Lowe back. You need him to come back, because Kaden Wallace at left tackle for the first time in his life, at least his college career, that didn't work last week. And I'm not saying it never can, but you can't put Drake Maye out there next Sunday, even with the long week leading up to it, if Kaden Wallace is going to be your left tackle. It just doesn't feel like that should be the case. Now, the week after, I'm certainly interested in that. You got a Miami Dolphins team that's coming in there with who knows at quarterback. Right now, it's Tim Boyle. It could be Mac Jones by that point in the season. That's a real possibility. But either way, you're going into that game against a divisional opponent who I know you haven't been allowed to beat the last 5 or 6 years, but you're going into that game with a chance to say, kind of even the playing field of, well, they don't know what they have at quarterback either. They're playing with a limited playbook too. Right. Maybe this is a time that we can put our quarterback out there. He could see and feel the live bullets, coming at him with Miami's defense, and both quarterbacks will kind of be figuring some things out on the fly, and we might be able to snag a game here and get some real valuable experience for our quarterback. But to me, as good as the City So news is to get him back in the mix, it comes down to that tackle position. And once you've got that healthy, Vidarian Lowe was playing fine the first 2 games. Again, didn't see a lot of pressure, but I think the tackle position was okay for the Patriots through the first 2 weeks. And once you get that part healthy, then I think you can think about, let's see when we can get the kid in here.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that in addition to City So's return on Monday, which is definitely getting a lot of headlines, and it should, because it does help the interior of that offensive line, Kaden Wallace was also present, and we know that he had his injury issues after Thursday night's game as well. It's appearing right now that he may have dodged a serious injury, and that's something that the Patriots can definitely hang their hat on, because regardless of his difficulty, and he did struggle on Thursday, no question about it, he is one of their most athletic and promising young offensive linemen, and you love what he can bring to the table when he's got a few more reps under his belt. So if that be the case, he could be out there, and he could definitely give you some solid minutes this week. Vidarian Lowe is someone that I know Patriots fans are going to be watching, because say what you will about Lowe, I've been critical of him. I think a lot of us in Patriots Nation have been, for his performance last season, through the preseason, even in training camp, maybe not really performing up to the level we'd hoped. He probably is your most stable and probably your best performer at that position right now, so you're going to need him. I think it's interesting what you say about week 5, because with the Miami Dolphins coming to town, it is going to be interesting to see if maybe this is the opportunity to give Drake Maye a chance to have the keys to the kingdom, to start him at home, give him an opportunity to get his first official start in front of a friendly crowd, one that's going to be behind him, one that's going to want to see him. Now, there's also a flip side to that. Miami's defensive front may be salivating at that as well. If the Patriots' offensive line goes out this Sunday against the Niners and looks as bad, or dare I say, even worse against the San Francisco 49ers front, is that going to give them pause? That right now is the question. And it leads me quite nicely into my final question for you on this, Cam, before we transition into other Jets takeaways that you had from week 3. Do you think right now that the coaching staff is moving forward prudently, or do you think there is still adjustments that need to be made at the coaching level as well?
I think definitely the latter. There are adjustments that need to be made from this coaching staff. And, it's one of those things where these are a lot of guys who are in I would say leadership positions, but higher coaching positions than they've ever been in. Gerard Mayo, DeMarcus Covington, Alex Van Pelt, full-time play caller, offensive coordinator. You got a bunch of first-time coaches in there, guys like Dante Hightower. And you got a lot of guys figuring it out. What's it like to be a coach in the National Football League or a coach of this stature, to be a defensive coordinator, to be an offensive play caller, to be the head coach. And that, I think, comes back to some criticism of the offseason of, hey, we hear now that Robert Kraft picked Gerard Mayo 5 years ago when he was the first-year inside linebackers coach. And it's like, wait, really? So what, we're just going through the motions here and what this coaching search is or could be? And you've hired a guy who's never played nor coached for anyone other than Bill Belichick, the guy you just canned. That was kind of my big thing. It's like, I'm not saying Gerard Mayo can't be a good coach, and I certainly liked the approach they had the first 2 weeks, but he doesn't have an address book. He doesn't have a Rolodex. He doesn't have contacts around the league. And so now you're in a situation where it's not just a first-time head coach, but you've got a whole coaching staff figuring out what it's like to be in this position in the NFL. And I think that's a big issue. So I did like a lot of their strategy things in the first 2 weeks, but you look at I thought, horrible clock management in the game against Seattle going back to week 2. And it's like, that's something that you've got to learn by doing. That's not something you learn on a test, football's version of the bar exam. You've got to have that happen to you. So it's things like that where there's still growing pains. And strategically, I thought they got out of the run game way too early on Thursday. This is a Jets team that was soft as butter against the run through 2 weeks. And to be quite frank, wasn't really good against the run last year either. And they fall down 7-0 before touching the ball. And it's like they gave up on it. Their top two backs, Gibson and Stevenson, had a combined 11 carries, and it was over. It was done. And so I think there are some hiccups to go through in terms of the coaching staff. But one thing on Jacoby Brissett that I think is tough for us to swallow, because it sounds like a loser mentality, but it's what we got to deal with right now. Jacoby Brissett doesn't make bad plays worse. And right now, that is almost all you can ask for from this team.
That's a good point.
There's so many points last year, or plays, that I think last year, with Mac Jones maybe trying to do too much, or Bailey Zappi trying to do too much, become worse. These rollouts become picks, and or these pitches, these last second pitches become fumbles, the way Antonio Gibson ran one for like 45 yards against Seattle. So there's something to that. It's not the way we like to think, because we haven't had to think that way for a long, long time with the Patriots. But with him, bad plays are just bad plays. They're not catastrophic plays. And that is something that you would need to have to kind of get over when Drake Maye, the rookie, is out there.
Yeah, without any question. And again, I think you bring up very interesting points when it comes to the strategy of the coaching staff and where they're going to be focusing. Gerard Mayo on Monday described Monday's practice as kind of a bonus day, because the Patriots did have a little mini bye, if you think about it, over the weekend. And it comes at an early time in the schedule. And one of the big things that I think was going to be a focal point of today's practice, and obviously the media is only able to watch a select part of it, but I'm willing to venture to guess that ball security was a big part of what this team wanted to go through. And I love the way Ramondre Stevenson has played, but you fumbled the ball 3 times in 3 games. Gerard even said it. Now you become a target. Now all of a sudden you've got an issue on your hands, and the Patriots need to shore that up. And it's every single team. It's not just for Ramondre or just for the Patriots. If that happens, any team is going to be zeroing in on you. So they all have to be targets. They all have to learn to protect the ball and then move forward. It's about getting fundamentals first. So I look for the coaching staff to maybe do a better job this week of installing that type of practice schedule and really instilling that strategy for the San Francisco 49ers. So, folks, offensively, your New England Patriots clearly have a lot of work to do, but they weren't the only takeaways from the 24-3 loss to the Jets in the Meadowlands on Thursday night. When we return, our good friend Cam Stuart and I are going to go over the lingering takeaways from the loss to the Jets and what lessons need to be learned for the New England Patriots if they want to right the ship in short order. All this and more when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On listeners, football is finally back, and the only thing more important than cheering on your favorite team on game day is making sure that your game day table is well stocked. Why root for your team on an empty stomach? With delivery powered by DoorDash, you can order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks without missing a play. So don't delay. All of your game day must-haves just in time for kickoff through DoorDash. And use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24, that's LOCKEDFALL 24, for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. It's a limited time offer and terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots. And of course, if we are your first listen each and every day, a tip of the cap and a big thanks to all of you out there who continue to make Locked On Patriots possible. We always appreciate your support. If you have made Locked On Patriots your first listen, we encourage you to make your second listen our good friends over at Locked On NFL. All the major storylines all over the Shield, brought to you by our amazing network of analysts at the Locked On Podcast Network on the Locked On NFL channel. Remember, the Locked On NFL podcast, much like Locked On Patriots, is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And here today to help break down the lingering takeaways from the Patriots' 24-3 loss to the New York Jets is our good friend Cam Stuart, host of the Locked On Sports Boston Patriots Postcast, as well as the host of Locked On Baylor. And Cam, in the previous segment, we talked offense. We went very quarterback heavy, talked a little bit about the impact of the offensive line on how this offensive strategy is going to move forward. But if we're being honest, the New England Patriots look like they needed an upgrade or at least some help in every aspect of the game, including defense, which has typically been this team's strong suit. When you look at the loss to the Jets, taking the quarterback position out of the equation for just a moment, what would you say was your biggest takeaway from this game that did not include Jacoby Brissett or that offensive line?
Missed tackles. They missed 13 or 14 tackles, 100 extra yards right there. You know, Mike, I interview high school football coaches every week. We do about a 2-minute interview all the time. And the things I ask for, what they're working on in practice, they'll say things like ball security and tackling, which are two things the Patriots need to work on this week. And it's incredible to see such a difference because that's what they were so good in, impressively so, even at the NFL level, the first 2 weeks of these guys, they wrap up. You can't get extra yards. You can't get yak on these guys. And that was not the case at all in the game against the Jets. It looked like they had reverted back to something from a few years ago in terms of missing tackles. That hasn't been an issue, even when the Patriots have been really bad. And that I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this doesn't feel like the same team. That's more than just a Juwan Bentley injury, which stinks, by the way. I think that's a blow to this Patriots defense. But it was just missed tackle after missed tackle, and it was just more opportunities for the Jets to stay on the field, move down the field. I thought that was the big issue. I don't know that their coverage was as good as it's been in the first 2 weeks. We look at Christian Gonzalez, who is still had a decent game. He gives up a touchdown. It's on a perfect throw from Aaron Rodgers. But overall, I don't think anyone was super impressive on that defensive side. And it starts with just the fundamentals. They could not wrap up.
Very good point. Absolutely. I mean, You mentioned the missed tackles, and I think that is the most egregious of all of the sins that the Patriots committed on Thursday night from a defensive side. Because of those missed tackles, it leads to breakdowns throughout the entirety of your defense. The front seven all of a sudden looked a little bit weaker, looked a little less sure of itself. The edge, they lost the edge more than they won the edge. Let's face it, it was not set nearly as much as it needed to be. And as a result, you didn't see number 99 get home. You didn't see Keon White go off like he has in the first couple of games and be able to set that tone as a fearsome pass rusher. You just didn't see it from the New England Patriots, and playing from behind and not necessarily getting the chance to control any aspect of the game. Definitely didn't control the tempo. You lost the time of possession, 40 minutes to 19 minutes. You cannot win when you're putting out that kind of an effort, and it all starts up front and the tone that's set right from the get-go. Credit the Jets. They came out looking to establish themselves as the alpha on the field. They did that right off the bat, and the Patriots were on their heels more often than not. And this team is not built to come from behind. There's no question about it. Against the Jets, you knew they were going to be up against the team that right now is being mentioned among the top playoff contenders in the conference. And we saw why on Thursday night. Solid in all three phases, and the Patriots just could not compete. Is it an anomaly? Is it necessarily an outlier? Or is this a harbinger of things to come? That, to me, is going to be the discussion over the course of the next couple of days. And going against the 49ers this weekend, I think is going to be a very good litmus test for this team.
I mean, you're right. You measure yourself up against the best, and you've got I know we're going to talk about it, a San Francisco team that's maybe not reeling is the right word, but reeling adjacent. I mean, we're talking about back-to-back losses for the defending NFC champions. But yeah, what you saw on Thursday was just an unwatchable product against the Jets, and it like mind-numbingly so. And it kind of makes you rethink that Cincinnati game. How much of it was the Patriots having a great, like they looked like a top 5 defense in that game? How much of it was that? How much of it was Cincinnati looking really bad and sluggish, and not having a Jamar Chase for the preseason, not having T. Higgins in that game, not having Joe Mixon anymore? Like how much of that factored into a Patriots victory in Week 1 versus what we've seen since? Because honestly, the defense didn't play lights out against Seattle either. They played well enough in the second half, right, to keep them in the game. They stopped those long scoring drives from Seattle, but they were not very sharp in that game either. And so now you start to wonder, you didn't look sharp the last 2 games defensively. You've lost one of your most important players defensively. Jabril Peppers is someone who's obviously not 100%, so you don't know when you're going to lose him. It's like, this has the potential to start looking like a Carolina Panthers team sans Andy Dalton, because I don't think Jacoby Brissett's throwing for 300 yards anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think so either, especially with the supporting cast around him. And then, it's not Jacoby's style. I think there's a lot of things that he does well in terms of managing the game, but going off, especially behind this offensive line, is going to be a very, very difficult task for him. But I agree with you. This is a situation where we're starting to see a trend in the wrong direction. And again, you mentioned the 49ers now coming in with back-to-back losses and kind of looking mortal, maybe even a little too mortal for the likes of the NFC West, especially after relinquishing a 24-17 lead with 4:57 to go against the Los Angeles Rams, who a lot of people were starting to write off as a team that was already looking to next year. All of a sudden, the San Francisco 49ers come into this game maybe needing a must-win. Are they still those potent defending NFC champs, and can they make that type of adjustment to have a get-right game against the New England Patriots? We're going to discuss those Niners in just a minute and how the Patriots match up on both sides of the ball. We might even dabble into a little special teams for you. We're going to wrap up this discussion by talking a little Pats Niners and taking an early look at Week 4 when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. So if you're feeling pretty good about the chances of your favorite New England sports team, who just happens to be an underdog in week 4 against the favorites in the Bay Area, you can test your intuition and make the most of it with FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots, and we continue to break down the Patriots' first test of the season. Is New England strong enough to come back from a 24-3 drubbing at the hands of the New York Jets on Thursday and turn it into a positive against the defending NFC champion San Francisco 49ers in Week 4? Going to be very interesting to see if they can do that. Does not sound like an easy task on paper, but stranger things have happened. And here today to help me break it all down is the host of the Locked On Sports Boston Patriots Postcast and the host of Locked On Baylor right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, Cam Stuart. And Cam, we've talked offense. We've talked a lot of offense, but we did discuss some of the defensive breakdowns and some of the defensive difficulties that the Patriots have had in the last couple of weeks, really strongly manifesting themselves against the Jets on Thursday night. But this San Francisco 49ers team now that they will be facing in Week 4 has looked vulnerable over the course of the last couple of weeks, especially in their loss to the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday. Looked like they had this one wrapped up with less than 5 minutes remaining and a 24-17 lead. The Rams rally, and they're able to take a 27-24 victory home and really kind of put the Niners on their heels when it comes to their stranglehold in the NFC West. Now, we've been on this opposite side of the arguing coin before, Cam. We've seen the New England Patriots in a position where they are the clear strength of their conference, of their division. And they've taken a tough loss, maybe even a couple of tough losses. And a lot of people wonder whether or not the king is ready to be knocked off his throne. We've heard the term get right games several times. When you have Tom Brady under center, it's a lot easier to get right than it is when you're dealing with a very young team, a makeshift offensive line, a veteran quarterback trying his best to stay upright on every drop back, and a defense that's still learning its identity, not to mention a rookie head coach. So when you look at this New England Patriots team and you look ahead to what you've seen from the Niners so far, do you believe that this right now could line up as a get-right game for the 49ers, meaning they'll come in with a little extra salt in their mouth from this one? Or do you believe that the Patriots may be catching this Niners team at the right time on their heels a little bit and pounce to take advantage?
Wet blanket, but I think it's a get-right game for San Francisco. And for Niners fans, yeah, people will write you off, but there's a reason why you don't see Max Kellerman on ESPN anymore. There's a reason why Trent Dilfer's coaching at UAB and not claiming that the Patriots are done. So,
I love it.
And the 49ers are such a good team and good franchise over the last few years. All those guys have played in a Super Bowl. They don't lose back-to-back home games. And let's not get this twisted. That game on Sunday was a home game for the San Francisco 49ers, and they blew it. They absolutely blew it. And they are very banged up, which I think gives, Patriots fans some hope the way it did against Cincinnati in Week 1 as well. So that would be kind of the argument towards you're catching them at a tough time for them. But even still, I see we talk about the best offensive schemer in the game for a reason with Kyle Shanahan. And anytime someone of his discipleship comes away with a great game plan, you're like, man, it's that Shanahan again. I heard it a lot with the Cowboys Saints game last week. Shanahan kills them again. And it's just like Kubiak, right? So there's a reason why we call him the best schemer in the game. And if you look at the position groups, and this is the way I've kind of thought of it this week, Cam, just like stop looking at the injuries and let's look at the guys who are going to be on the field, the position groups. And I don't know that there's one position group that I'm like, yes, the Patriots are much better there. Maybe it's running back with Ramondre Stevenson out there for the Patriots and the Niners going with a couple of different guys with McCaffrey on IR. So maybe it's that, but the scales are tipped so far in terms of the other team's passing game, the other team's offensive line, the other team, gap schemes, that you're not as good in that position. So I still think San Francisco is at worst only a top 3 team in the NFC. So I think Juwan Jennings can have a big game for San Francisco, but they've had to go down the depth chart at a few different positions. And I still think they're better, and they're playing at home. And even the benefit that the Patriots would have coming off, as you called it, kind of a mini quasi bye week, I just see a better team and a better coach on the other side, and they're playing at home. It's tough to pick against them.
Yeah, it really is tough to pick against them. And again, the San Francisco 49ers do have an awful lot of talent, and I'm glad that you reminded people of that. Yes, they are banged up, but you still got Warner, who's capable of getting after and making tackles. He leads the team with 20. When it comes to, getting after the quarterback, and Bosa's got a couple of sacks. These are all players that have yet to really show and really, I think, demonstrate what their full capabilities are. New England might be a get-right matchup for this San Francisco 49ers team. And, you look at what they've done, especially, Juwan Jennings is someone who's capable of having a big game. You're looking for Brandon Ayuk to come out and start earning some of that big-time contract that he just received a couple of weeks ago. Jordan Mason, I think, has been, pretty good in terms of trying to at least help mitigate the loss of someone like a Christian McCaffrey. So these guys right now, the Niners, are kind of in a dormant state. You're waiting for them to break out. What the Patriots have to hope for is that they can keep these guys on the shelf for a little bit longer, give themselves a chance to remain in the game by keeping these guys dormant. Because if you start to see a breakout performance on offense and a breakout performance on defense, it could put them on their heels, very similar to what we saw on Thursday night against the New York Jets. So that's what I'm looking for the New England Patriots. Control. You've got to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They didn't do that against the Jets. They had difficulty doing so against the Seattle Seahawks. I think they did a very good job of it against the Cincinnati Bengals. They need to kind of recapture a little bit of that bravado in order for them to give themselves a puncher's chance in this one. But bottom line, it's not going to be easy with everything that the Patriots have been through these last couple of weeks. Cam, it's always interesting and always a lot of fun for when you join me here on Locked On Patriots and we get a chance to break down the Patriots' loss, and you add a little bit of distance in between the postcast and here. I want to thank you for your reason, for your level-headedness, and most importantly for your insight, my friend, which is second to none. Folks, check out Cam on the Locked On Sports Boston Patriots postcast after each and every Patriots game. He's the voice you're going to hear the moment the buzzer sounds. And you can check him out and check out all of his great work on the Locked On Podcast Network at Locked On Baylor, and follow him on Twitter at Real Cam Stuart. And, of course, check out The Cam Show wherever podcasts are available. One of the great listens out there. This guy does amazing work, and you will not be disappointed. And don't forget to check us out each and every day here on the Locked On Patriots podcast. We always appreciate all of your support. On behalf of Cam Stewart, I'm Mike DeBate, reminding all of you to stay safe, to stay well, and to be the change that you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow on Locked On Patriots.